Hey everybody, welcome back to my Python 3 for Beginners tutorial series. In this video we're going to pick up where we left off from the last video. We're here in PyCharm and we're ready to write some code. If you didn't watch the installation video, I would suggest that you go back and do that so that you can be on pace with what we're doing here and get started with our project1.py file. So in this video you're going to learn about variables and integers, and you're also going to learn how to print stuff onto the screen. So what a variable is it's something that stores information. So if I wanted to make a variable called score and I wanted to start score out as 0, I could simply do score equals 0. Now here you're going to have a variable and an integer. So score is the variable because we are storing the value of 0 in score. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. And 0 is an integer because it's a number and it's not in quotation marks, which I'll explain to you in another video when we go over strings. But for now, just know that score is the variable and 0 is the integer. Okay, in order for it to be an integer, it has to be a number, and anything that stores any kind of value, whether it's an integer or a string or anything else, is called a variable. So score is our variable. Now if I wanted to go score equals 0 and high score equals 10, now I have two variables, which is perfectly fine because you're going to want to tell you're going to want to tell the game that the high score is one thing, and you're going to want to tell it that the score is something else, and you're going to want to store those values. So like if the score goes up in the game, you're going to want that score variable to hold whatever the current score is, and you want it to be separate from high score. Now the only time they'll start to match is if the score would go over, in this case 10, and it starts to be the high score. Then you could start to make a match if you would want to, or you could wait until the end and check and see if this is bigger than this one, then make high score whatever the score is. We'll go over stuff like that later that'll allow that to make some more sense. But for right now, we're going to use something called the print function, and that simply prints stuff to the screen. So if I go print and I do the parentheses there, I can go print score. It's that simple, and then I can go up here, go run, and run. Now when this comes up, you're going to want to make sure that project 1, or whatever the name of your current project is highlighted, and click on it. And here you'll see it just simply printed 0 because that's what score is. Score is 0. And it says process finished with exit code 0. Right now you don't really have to worry about that, but what that means is that there was no errors in your code. I'll show you what I mean. If I add a, let's say I take that parenthesis away, and I go run, run, choose project 1, now you're going to see it doesn't print the 0. It's going to tell me that in the file project1.py on line 5, which the reason it says line 5 here is because I didn't end this one with the parenthesis, so it's trying to go to line 5 because it doesn't know that line 4 actually ended, which is why this says line 5. So if I hover the mouse here, or where I was, you can see it'll actually tell you it expects a comma or a parenthesis. Well, because we don't have something else to add here, we need to add the parenthesis. But let's look at this a little further. There's something called a syntax error because every function and variables and everything all have to be done a certain way. And the print function needs to have parentheses. That's what the syntax is how you actually type everything out and how it all has to have certain things. So like print has to have the parentheses on each end. That's the syntax of the print function. So it's going to say syntax error, unexpected EOF, which means end of file, while parsing. So when it was trying to run it, it ended the file unexpectedly because it doesn't know where it ends because there's no parenthesis here. And then it says process finished with exit code 1. Now it's not exit code 0 because there's an error in this code. So if I click over here and get rid of that screen, I can put this back, go run, project 1, and now we're back to it printing out 0. Now I can do this with high score as well. And now it prints out 10 and an exit code of 0 because there wasn't an error. Now, let's take this one step further. If we wanted to add the two together for whatever reason, now it normally wouldn't be a score, it might be like number 1, so we'll put num1, and number 2, so we'll put num2. If we wanted to add those together, we could simply go in here into the print function and put num1 plus num2. Then when we run it, we're going to get 10 because 10 plus 0 is 10. Now if I make num1 10 and I run it again, now we get 20. We could also do this with multiplication by adding an asterisk. 10 times 10 is 100. We can subtract 10 from 10, which is 0, or we can divide, and divide is a /. And that's 1.0. Now it does a decimal point here because in division you can have a remainder. So it does what they call a float, which is a decimal point number. So you've learned about variables, like num1 here would be the variable, num2 would be the variable. You learned what an integer is, which is basically a number value that's generally stored within a variable. And you learned how to use the print function and how to run a program. So in the next video, we're going to go over strings. I'll see you there.